Welcome back to another episode of Sports Hits by Jellyman, NRL by Jellyman segment. Coming off round 6 review and previewing round 7, as well as obviously, stats and best bets for the week ahead. But cracking straight into it, looking at, round 6's game. So we head back to last Thursday. The Storm defeat the Roosters 28-8. Real gritty performance from the Storm, which is what they've nutted out across the last few rounds. Coates scoring 3 tries, impressive. Munster again, good. Meaney also a try. Munster will head back to fullback this week, which will be interesting. But the most impressive thing was actually their middles halting and going through the Sydney middles, which is a surprise with Sydney on paper having the better forward pack. But look, Storm win that one, and down in the dumps a few weeks ago, they, as per usual, reignite themselves into that premiership or finals contention when everyone thought they were out of it. Friday's games, obviously you had the Bulldogs undermanned, underwhelmed. Josh Adokar going out as well. South put a score on them, 50-16. Trailed 3 tries, Graham 3 tries late as well. Not too much to cover off in that game apart from sort of South Sydney getting a lot of those tries because of how Canterbury were decimated by injuries. The other game that night, the Dolphins defeat the Cowboys 32-22. The Cowboys, we've been saying potentially Drinkwater out, Cotter also out, but I don't think it's that for them. I think it's complacency from last year, them having an easier fixture last year because of where they finished in the ladder the year before. They're having to play a lot of these good sides. The Dolphins, they're getting the most out of the players they have on the park, and Tabuai-Fidow a double, Asako a double, Gilbert goes over. The halves looked good even without the experience there. It's just super impressive by the Dolphins, and if they can put that together week to week, they will play finals this year. Saturday's games, Panthers put a score on the Sea Eagles 44-12. Edwards scores 4 and walks across the line a few times. The Sea Eagles, we've been saying it for, this year, but previous years, their defense is their Achilles heel, and them playing against the bigger sides who can play defense, they can't put scores on them. So, they may win, 40-0 or 40-4 against those bottom 8 sides, but against those top 8 sides is when it counts. Towards the back end of the season, that's when it matters, and they can't put scores on them and they can't defend them. So we'll see how they go in the coming weeks against those better sides, but not much to take away from that other than the Panthers do what the Panthers do. The Raiders beat the Broncos 20-14. Shocked the Broncos. Once again, the Broncos' completion rate is what killed them, as well as potentially a bit of arrogance. The Raiders played gritty, tough football, and that got them the win at the end of the day. Obviously, the Broncos' first loss of the season. They'll be looking to bounce back against Gold Coast this week. The Raiders get back Wighton and Tarpany this week as well. Obviously, looking to beat the St. George Dragons down in Canberra. Sunday's games, the Titans do defeat the Dragons 20-18. Late comeback, obviously the young halves, and then the young spine once again, Sexton, and then also Campbell at the back there. Tanner Boyd obviously at the 7 as well, so a super young spine getting it done. Sammy has a huge day out as well, but an impressive win there on the Gold Coast for the Titans. The Dragons, away from home, their squad, Hunt's trying to do everything for them. They've got the squad there to contend, to lift them off the bottom end of the ladder, but it's going to be another tough year for the Dragons, as we've already mentioned a few times. The later game that day, the Knights versus the Warriors. The Knights get the win 34-24 at home at Newcastle. Young scores once, Marju twice, Frizzell, Crossland, man. Jaden Bradley does his ACL, unfortunately. The Warriors obviously away from home. Pompey scores a double, Cozzy scores, Ford scores. We didn't sort of watch that too much of that game, so we can't go too far into it. But the Warriors head back home this week to play the North Queensland Cowboys. And the Knights, unfortunately, play the Panthers. So we'll see how that matchup goes for them then. Monday's game, the Tigers unfortunately lose again. They hit the bye this week, so they'll get off 0 points. The Donut with a bye, win against the bye. But the Eels win 28-22. The Eels dominated most of this game. Didn't actually look too attacking. And they once again let a lot of scores in from the Tigers, and easy scores if that. So obviously watching this game in depth, that's what we really noticed is the Eels defence just can really switch off at times, and that really does cost them. But looking into topic 2, player and team consistencies. So the Broncos, they've actually held teams to 20 points or less in all 6 games, but obviously have struggled to score in some of those games as well without putting pressure on the other team and going through their sets and getting through the motions rather than trying to score each play and forcing errors. Staggs 1+ try in 4 of his last 5 games. Cobbo 1+ try in his last 4 games. The Raiders, they actually scored 20 points or less in 5 of their 6 games, but then allowed 20+ points in 4 of the last 5 games. Wighton comes back this week from suspension. He scored in 3 of his last 4 games as well to start the season. The Bulldogs struggling at the moment, obviously 16 points or less in their last 3 games. Losing out O'Carr as well also cost them. The Sharks obviously had the bye last week, 30+ points in 3 of the last 4 games. Mulitalo 6 tries in 4 games, same as Kendi. Both players 1+ try in their last 4 games. So coming out against the Roosters, who just got beaten by the Storm. That'll be an interesting matchup there. For the Dolphins, Tabuai-Fidow 1+ try in all 6 games. The Seagulls have allowed 30+ points in 3 of the last 4 games. They obviously play the Storm, who just put 28 on the Sydney Roosters. Luckily for Manly, that'll be up in Sydney. Olakuatu 1+ try in 3 of his last 4 games. For the Storm, they've held teams to 12 points or less in their last 3 games, so on the back of defence. Obviously, the Seagulls just managed to score, I think, 12 or 14 points last week against the Panthers. Munster 1+ try in his last 3 games. He actually heads back to fullback this week, so he'll be super dangerous there. The Knights, they've scored 20+ points in their last 4 games. Marjorie 1+ try in his last 3 games. Dom Young 8 tries in his last 4 games. For the Warriors, Cozzy 1+ try in 3 of his last 4 games. The Cowboys have only scored 20+ points in 2 of 6 games this season. For the Eels, Sevo 7 tries in his last 5 games, and then also 1+ try in 4 of his last 5 games. Gutherson 1+ try in 3 of his last 4 games. For the Panthers, Crichton 1+ try in 3 of his last 4 games as well. South Walker 4 tries in his last 3 games, 1+ try in his last 3 games as well. Graham 4 tries in the last 2 games, but did have 3 tries last game. For the Dragons, Ben Hunt 1+ try in his last 3 games, and for the Sydney Roosters, Paulo 6 tries in his last 4 games, 1+ try in his last 4 games as well. Heading into round 7, so previewing round 7, the Dolphins versus South. Looking at the squads here, the ins and the outs. Outs, obviously, Jared Wallace for the Dolphins. In comes Jesse Bromwich. Also, Robert Jennings on the wing there, which is a good in for them. For the South, in is Alex Johnston. Totola is unfortunately out once again. Jairo does come back in though, so a really good in for them there. This game will be an interesting tight game, obviously up at Suncorp in Brisbane. So I reckon the Dolphins plus line is a good bet in this one with South, other than last week against the Bulldogs, having a lot of close games. So we do like the Dolphins plus line with how they play, simple type footy. Also looking at Asako and Tabuai-Fidow to score, as well as potentially Johnston as well to score, and potentially a Campbell Graham and Cody Walker. But we'll go through that in the next segment. South have won 16 of the last 19 games in Queensland though. Each of the South's last 4 night games have gone unders, but the Dolphins actually covered their line in 5 of their last 6 matches there. Friday's game, so we've got the Cronulla Sharks versus Sydney Roosters. Obviously Cronulla coming off that bye. In comes, there's a few changes, but outs are mainly, so Finucane and Rudolph are out. In those positions is Wilton, McGuinness. On the bench is Kafusi and Hazleton. For the Roosters, in comes Tedesco, Lodge and Momorowski. Out goes Fletcher Baker. Obviously James Tedesco fills in the full back. Manu back to the centres. Excuse me, sorry. And then on the bench is Matt Lodge at 17 as well. This will be a super interesting matchup here. Sydney's actually won their last 7 versus Cronulla. 7 of the Sharks' last 8 matches have gone over. The away team has covered the line in 14 of the Sharks' last 15 matches, so it could be a tight one. We do like the Sharks in this one, just being out at PointsBet Stadium, coming off the bye. They've had a couple of weeks to prepare for this one. They should be ready and raring to go. The way Sydney played away in Melbourne as well, sort of a big difference in Cronulla need to get going. And we do like the halves combo of Cronulla putting some points on the Sydney Roosters, especially with the Sydney Roosters allowing as many points as they did last week against the Storm. The next game in that evening is the Seagulls playing against the Storm. They are actually playing at 4 Pines Park. In comes Sipley, Schuster and Woods. Out goes Lawton and Garrett. Tom Trebojevic does have an injury cloud over him. On the wingers, Viega, so Roman Viega and Harper. Look, we see the Storm winning this one as well. They actually, obviously, out goes Meany. Pizzette comes into that 6th position, along with Hughes. But yeah, we're just seeing the Storm have that better structure at the moment against those top end sides, and obviously driven by defence as well. Manly's actually lost their last 6 games on short turnarounds. Melbourne's last 5 night matches have gone unders. Melbourne's actually covered the line in their last 3 games as well. The Seagulls allowing 30 plus points, as we already mentioned in their overview. So we got the Storm in that matchup there. Moving to Saturday's game, so the Warriors against the Cowboys. Obviously, the Warriors being at Mount Smart Stadium in Auckland. DWZ comes in once again, but it'll just be on the extended bench. Pretty much unchanged. Out goes Tamari Martin again and Wayne Egan. In comes Freddie Lussick there. In for Cowboys is Nanai and Tuolagi. Out goes Griffin Neem, so a bit of a boost there for the Cowboys. This one we're actually 50-50 on as it stands. The odds are actually 50-50 as well, 190, 190. A couple of stats here, the last 7 teams that play Newcastle have lost the next week. Obviously that being the Warriors. 6 of New Zealand's last 7 home matches have gone unders. North Queensland has covered the line in 4 of the last 5 matches against New Zealand. Obviously Todd Payton does have history over there. Look, Warriors are 5th, Cowboys are 15th. This should be a win for the Cowboys being on paper. Obviously with Tohu Harris back as well. We're super 50. Dylan Walker actually comes to 5'8" there at the 6th position. We're 50-50 on this one at the moment. We don't know which way to go, but we'll sort of have a bit more of an in-depth look into it. Most likely Saturday morning, checking out the weather in New Zealand as well. Next game is Newcastle Knights versus Panthers. Obviously Panthers heavy favourite. In for the Knights is Gamble as well. Crosland obviously into that 9 position on the bench man. Hetherington Jones. In comes Liam Martin on the extended bench for the Panthers, meaning he might get up and play. Also Tyron Peachy out there as well. But the Panthers should win this one easily. Newcastle's failed to cover their line in their last 5 games against the reigning Prems. 10 of Newcastle's last 12 games at home have gone total match points over as well. So total match points over, Panthers big win is what we're backing in. Newcastle may actually put some points on in this one as well, just as how they're moving the ball, but also with how they played against the Panthers last season, where they were able to put some points on the board. The Titans versus the Broncos, hopefully getting along to this one. Out goes Toby Sexton, in is Kieran Foran in the 6th spot. Out for the Broncos is Flegler. In there for him will be Corey Jensen at number 8. And Palacia also coming in there. For this one, Brisbane want to bounce back from last week's performance. Gold Coast actually lost their last 5 games against Queensland sides, and the home team has covered the line in their last 5 matches between Gold Coast and Brisbane, which is the Gold Coast line. But look, the Broncos should get the win here. Don't be surprised if it's a high-scoring affair, especially if the weather is nice up on the Gold Coast. But yeah, there could be some points scored in this one, as we've seen in previous matchups between these squads. Sunday's games, the Raiders versus the Dragons. Also a game where it could be both teams 20 plus. St. George has lost its last 12 matches as underdog. 4 of the Dragons' last 5 games have been overs. And the home team has covered the line in 7 of the last 8 matches. There are 8 games between these sides. In comes Wighton, Tarpany, Kotrick. Out goes Rapana. In for the Dragons, Jaden Hunt, Sullivan, Molo, Feeder, Musgrove, depending on what happens there. Out goes Ravaloa and Molo. So obviously, who have we got coming in there? Talatau and Moan goes to the 6th spot. And then a few others, Zane Musgrove and Murdoch Masilla in the 11. And a couple of bench spots as well filled in there. But we like the Raiders in this one at home. If the weather is fine in Canberra, look for both teams to score 20 plus points with some attacking football. Last game for the round, the Parramatta Eels versus the Canterbury Bulldogs that are decimated by injury 4 outs once again for the Bulldogs. Pango Jr. comes in. Kickow was in, but he was now injured at training. Ockenbaugh, Casey, Burns, Davey, quite a few wins. They'll need to sort of finalise their team with obviously Kickow out. For the Panthers, they get Junior Borlo back and Wonga Blake. But Wonga Blake's on the extended bench, so not sure if he actually comes back in. But we'll see what happens with that lineup closer to the time. The favourite has won the Dogs' last 14 matches at CommBank, and the Eels' last 10 home matches have gone unders. Canterbury has failed to cover the line in their last 4 games as well. Moving into topic 4, so round 7 best bets. So looking at round 7 as a whole, obviously these will be his Instagram reels and TikToks as well. So make sure you like, follow, and subscribe on those platforms. Our sort of 5 favourites for this round: the Dolphins covering the line in the 5 of the last 6 matches. Melbourne has covered the line in their last 3 matches. 10 of Newcastle's last 12 at home have gone overs. Gold Coast has lost their last 5 games versus Queensland sides, and Canterbury has failed to cover the line in their last 4 games. So what that is: Dolphins plus 11.5, Storm minus 4.5. Total match points over between Newcastle and Penrith, which is 43.5. Brisbane and Para head-to-head, that'll get 12.48 on Sportsbet. For Thursday's games, we like Tabuai-Fidow 1+ try in his all 6 games so far, and Cody Walker 1+ try in his last 3 games. That'll get you 4.50 on Sportsbet. Friday's games, Mulitalo, Paulo, and Munster, all 1+ try in 4 or 3 of the last games. 7.92 on Sportsbet, combining those 3 together. Saturday's games, Cozzy, Crichton, and Cobbo. Cozzy 1+ try in 3 of his last 4, same as Crichton. Cobbo 1+ try in his last 4 games. 6.01 on Sportsbet there. And Sunday's games, Wighton 1+ try, Raiders and Dragons plus 20 points each. Sevo 1+ try, that'll get you 9.62 on Sportsbet currently as well. That is all for this week. Good luck for your weekend of punting. As always, feel free to like, follow, and subscribe on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, all of that jazz. All the best for your weekend ahead and NRL round of punting.